Hello, hello. I'm back. And this time I'm going to be joined by our old friend, Andrew Shepard.
Well, hello, Michael. It's good to be
Hello.
here.
It's good to have you. We're going to talk. We're going to talk to each other and we're going to let all of you people listen. It's a great honor. And we'll let you join us. If you're sick of listening to these two white guys, you can get in here. And I'm going to post the link on my Facebook.
And I will repost it once you post it.
Yeah.
Do I sound pretty good?
You sound pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, so I'll post the StreamYard link right here. See that, people? If you click that link, you can join our conversation. Let me post it also just right on my Facebook page.
And I will just reshare yours on my Facebook page. Sarah's saying, "Why am I here again?"
Why am I here again? It's like Make America Great Again.
I have to admit, Michael, it was really quite amusing trying to join you, and the text messages are clearly ahead of all of the screens broadcast, and so I felt like I was in Back to the Future, catching up to the future.
Nice, the magic of not quite real-time broadcasting.
Let's see if this light will cancel some of my.
Do I see the
shadows?
Current one? Don't want to waste your time, people. We know you have places to be, people to do. I don't see the most recent. I don't see this broadcast on Facebook. I see the one that we deleted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd just like to double check.
Well, there's 8 people looking at us right now.
8 people? What?
Said it went up 2 minutes ago.
Well, then it must be up. Must be up. All right, Andrew, what are we going to talk about tonight?
So, yeah, I would like to talk about the state of the world and where we see it going. Because I think that a lot of us are getting sort of caught up in the emotions and the reactions to what everyone else is going through. Like I've been a little maybe overly involved in conspiracy theories and sort of trying to debunk many of them because I find them to be implausible. And I feel like that's just wasted energy, because the gist of what people are trying to say is like, hey, let's wake up to what's really going on. And I think I agree with that message, that we really do have to sort of unpackage what we're dealing with and do some mental spring cleaning. Like, what is the culture? What is our country really about? Where are we going? And begin to really have a conversation about that. And sort of, we kind of need to know where we are in order to know where we're going and where we want to go.
Okay. I hear you. And more importantly, what are you eating right there?
I am eating quinoa, spinach, mushrooms, and I put some kimchi in it because kimchi is supposed to be very healthy for you. It's got spiciness and probiotics.
So that was your dessert, but what was for dinner?
I had ice cream for dinner.
Okay, that sounds much more plausible.
Coconut cashew ice cream.
Ooh, did you make it yourself?
My mom.
You guys, Andrew makes ice cream, and he makes it vegan, and I guess that's not sugar-free because it has honey in it, right? But it's dairy-free. And delicious. I can attest to that. I want to try playing this video. I want to start us off by just playing this speech from...
Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Let's bring some reality.
Ted Wheeler today. Yeah, so I'm just figuring this out. Share screen. Thanks for bearing with us, adoring fans. We couldn't do this without you. It would just be us shouting into the void. Now we're shouting into your faces instead.
I am used to shouting to the void, but it's better to have an audience, better to have participants.
I know, isn't it so much
Mhm.
better shouting at people? Okay, I think I'm doing it. Okay, here we go. So can we?
Yesterday's events began with hundreds of cars filled with supporters of the president, rallying in Clackamas County and then driving through downtown Portland.
Can people hear this?
They were supported and energized by the president himself. President Trump, for 4 years, we've had to live with you and your racist attacks on Black people. We learned early about your sexist attitudes towards women. We've had to endure clips of you mocking a disabled man. We've had to listen to your anti-democratic attacks on journalists. We've read your tweets slamming private citizens to the point of receiving death threats. And we've listened to your attacks on immigrants. We've listened to you label Mexicans rapists. We've heard you say that John McCain wasn't a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And now you're attacking Democratic mayors and the very institutions of democracy that have served this nation well since its founding. Do you seriously wonder, Mr. President, why this is the first time in decades that America has seen this level of violence? It's you who have created the hate and the division. It's you who have not found a way to say the names of Black people killed by police officers, even as people in law enforcement have. And it's you who claimed that white supremacists are good people.
Oh, there we go.
Your campaign of fear is as anti-democratic as anything you've done to create hate and vitriol in our beautiful country. You've tried to divide us more than any other figure in modern history. And now you want me to stop the violence that you helped create. What America needs is for you to be stopped so that we can come back together as one America, while recognizing that we must demand that all people, Black, brown, white, every color, from every political persuasion, pull together and hold all people accountable in stopping racism and violence. And we together are peaceful again under new leadership that reflects who we really are, we the people of this great nation. President Trump, you bring no peace. You bring no respect to our democracy. You, Mr. President, need to do your job as the leader of this nation. And I, Mr. President, will do my job as the mayor of this city. And we will both be held accountable, as we should.
Okay, so basically I agree with that speech. Like, that speech captures how I feel right now.
We saw 2 people killed.
And I want to talk about it.
Yeah. Now, I'll say that my mind immediately went to some defense of well, not defense of Trump, but like pushback that this is rhetoric. And I suspect a lot of people out there might feel like, well, he's oversimplifying things a little bit and, making sort of sweeping generalizations and accusations that one could nitpick over. But yeah, I guess for the most part, I can't disagree with Trump is using all of these political opportunities to divide America, and not necessarily that's his purpose, but that he's dividing America in order to get reelected. And he's been doing that from day one of his own campaign last year. I kind of think it's almost just his nature. It's not even necessarily. It doesn't have to be intentional. It's just what he does. He's a warrior. People elected him because he's a warrior. He wants to fight, and he fights like a bully tactic of putting other people down, shaming people, saying that people are pathetic, not good. And that whole strategy is combative, and it ends up dividing people. It's a warrior mindset.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. And the question about whether is he doing it on purpose or is this just his regular modus operandi? I think that's a valid question, but also it almost doesn't matter that much because we see the end result of it. So I wish that I'd love to invite, if there's anyone out there who would like to take the other side of this debate and say that actually Trump is a unifier, and that the Democrats are the ones who are destroying our cities and who are attacking freedom. I'd love you to come on the show, because otherwise I feel like we're just going to be echoing into the void.
Yeah.
Show.
Yeah. We'd love to have a different perspective here to challenge us in our somewhat unified perspective of, Trump's he's fueling the fire, fanning the flames.
Yeah. Because there's two totally different narratives going on right now in America, in the world. And they're just like complete opposites of each other. And the Trump narrative, it's the news media. They're the liars. Everything they say is against him, and they're with the Democrats. They're basically in cahoots with the Democrats, and they're lying, and they're accusing Trump. And there's basically no racism or no systemic racism. And we all just need to support our president, and then things will be better. And then there's the counter narrative, which I believe, which is that the Trump administration is constantly trying to undermine the free press, and that they're giving us a never before seen level of like vitriol and hatred, inciting, fanning the flames of racial tension and the political divide. I just think he's really ginning up almost like a state of chaos in America. And I guess you could argue that that's not Trump's fault. You could say it's coming from somewhere else, or you could say that that's not reality, but that's what I feel. And so I'm trying to understand how everyone else feels about what's going on right now, because in my mind, we're like in an alarm code red situation where basically the president is no longer accountable to like Congress. It seems he can say whatever he wants on TV, even something that's factually incorrect, demonstrably false, and he seems to get away with it because all his people will just echo it. And when you say, no, that's not true, no, that's a lie, then you get a bunch of pundits and his supporters jumping down your throat. No longer accountable to like Congress, it seems. We're having an echo. Whatever he wants on TV, even something that's Sorry, I'm hearing myself talk.
Sorry, that's my fault. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, well, I don't know where to stop, except that I feel like there's these two counter narratives going on, and people are just tuning each other out now. Like people don't want to hear what doesn't support their narrative, and people are blocking people on social media, and they're not talking to people in real life. And I actually feel semi alienated from a lot of people in my own family right now. Close family members, I feel like they don't want to hear what I have to say. And to the point where I don't even feel like talking to them, because it's like they don't want to hear what I have to say. I'm not going to just talk about the weather. I feel like we have a code red democracy under attack situation going on right now. And they don't want to hear what I have to say. So here we are.
Yeah. I find it very painful. The amount of division and disagreement on reality itself. I see myself as someone who loves getting to the truth. And the truth is something that is obviously a concept. It's a nebulous concept that we don't necessarily ever attain. We're always reaching toward it. But that dedication to reaching toward it is what leads us to actually solve problems. Because if we're just reaching toward a temporary solution that's good enough, we end up with very bad, false conclusions that end up working maybe for a little while, and then they totally fail us miserably. So to me, truth's very important. And this era, which didn't just start with Trump, but he certainly has ramped it up, of sort of a post-truth era, is deeply disturbing to me at a like an emotional, psychological level. I'm just just beside myself with exhaustion from all of this. And it's hard because you try to solve the puzzle. You try to go, all right, what are my friends saying? Like, is there something here that's useful? And then you see what they're saying, and it's largely full of just gobbledygook from your perspective, at least. And you go, well, I don't know how to reconcile this anymore. And I think social media is a big part of it. And Donald Trump, he's got his own freaking, propaganda Twitter page. Like he posts like 30 to 50 things a day so that his followers, if they want to, could just check Twitter videos and they'd get their entire news source curated by Donald Trump, which to me is disturbing because it's incredibly negative, cynical, twisted, very one-sided on a whole bunch of different issues. But that's where people are going. And I know that a lot of conservatives just don't watch the mainstream media at all. They don't watch any media that we would consider even the centrist stuff. I mean, obviously they're not watching MSNBC or any sort of liberal slant news, but they're not watching PBS. Like, oh, that's liberal trash. They won't watch anything. And there's this huge, the justification for this is that the news media is somehow corrupt, or, that they're actually publishing fake news, which of course isn't. I challenge anyone to really show me any of the mainstream networks having published actual fake news. Did they spin it a little bit? Did they guess? Did they make a guess at something? Did they turn the narrative in a way that made it very anti-Trump? Yes, I'll admit and acknowledge that. But show me a piece of evidence where New York Times, Washington Post, PBS, Tribune Company, like any of the main news networks, literally fabricated something that was completely fallacious, and I will stand in awe because I haven't seen that yet. And yet people are claiming it's fake news. They're literally putting fake stuff on there and making you want to believe it. And that I don't see. On top of which, I known some journalists in my lifetime, and these are really honest, like caring, considered people who really want to get the story. If there was a conspiracy being covered up, they would not be on the side of covering it up. And so it seems quite bizarre to me that people have chosen to wash away all of the free press and say, nope, they're all propagandists. But Donald Trump is telling us the truth. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, it blows your mind that people are believing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it blows my mind too. And you said something about how, like, you're trying to have an open mind and hear what the other side has to say, but when they explain it, it almost sounds like gobbledygook. I can relate to that too. There's a lot of people who I still want to respect, who I formerly respected and consider friends, and I still want to respect them and consider them friends. But when it comes to these issues, when we actually start debating it, it seems like they're plunging into another reality. Like the details that they're arguing, that they're pointing out that are flaws in my argument, are like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, they're pointing out factually like things that we can immediately fact check as false, and they're sending their proof or whatever is also things that are immediately false. So it's like, I don't know how to argue with someone if we can't agree on the facts, right?
Yes. And that, I remember seeing this start during the Al Gore, George W. Bush debates, because I remember feeling like Al Gore was very arrogant in his debating technique, and that George Bush seemed sort of out of his class as far as a debater. But I remember feeling emotionally that Bush won some of those debates because he seemed like the nicer guy somehow. And yet I remember distinctly that the facts, basically Bush just chose to disagree with Al Gore's facts, and Al Gore just like chuckled, like, how can you disagree with my facts? These are from the source, like, yeah. And they're like, no, I just don't agree with those facts about climate change or whatever it was. And I was like, that's where I remember it starting. And this not caring how to curate facts. This is just unacceptable. I mean, how do we navigate reality or life itself without caring that something is actually a fact or not?
Yeah, it's going to create more and more chaos. And, you know, it's almost like, I almost feel like some of us want that, or like people seem to like, yeah, I guess we need to have a civil war, you know, like that's going to solve things. I don't know if people really think this or not, but I get that impression, that they're like, no, you'll see. And I feel like people are in for a reckoning. Like, I think reality is going to slap America in the face really soon, and people are not going to be able to deal with it. And I'm talking about, like, I feel like Trump's rhetoric is just completely alienating 2/3 of the country, basically. I feel like 200 million Americans are like, nope, this has got to stop. This guy is out of touch with reality. We could take COVID as one example. I mean, it's just completely swept across our country. We haven't been able to stop it. It's arguable about whether we've been able to slow it down. It's killed 180,000 people, some of whom obviously would have died anyway, I guess, of other causes.
But there's a 24% increase in overall mortality rate for the country.
And that's,
so
it's pretty hard to argue with that. So, yeah, you know, when it's facts and we can't agree on the facts, you know, they'll be like, well, those are people that would have died anyway, or they had, you know, it's just they only died because of their comorbidities. I heard like earlier today that only something like 10,000 Americans have died of just COVID. You know, no comorbidities or other diseases. Right. And so that's a much nicer number. Then again, it's still 10,000 Americans died then of this pandemic.
That's double 9/11 or triple 9/11,
it's like 3 9/11s. And again, that's only the people that are the smallest way to possibly.
So as we've talked about before, like this was the perfect opportunity for Trump or any president to unite the whole country for once in 20 years.
Almost like a golden opportunity.
Yeah.
And enemy.
And instead of saying that we're all in this together, you know, doing a little JFK speech or something, or FDR speech, you know, instead he's just like, fake news. I think they're making it up. I think my own scientific advisors aren't really telling the truth. I think they're exaggerating. This is all garbage. I need to get my economy back because I got to win re-election. Holy mother trucker. Like this is just like such a horrible missed opportunity. And then what's happened from that, and this is where I don't think I really recognized before Trump was elected how important the rhetoric or the tone of a leader is, because he has justified and almost glorified this combative mentality.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen is, instead of people coming together, which is a perfect opportunity for it, in human psychology, as soon as you have an enemy, a collective enemy, you galvanize together. You become you set your differences aside, you become one. But instead, we've made COVID more of a dividing issue somehow. You know, it's like, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that we're more divided from COVID than before, because it was such a golden opportunity. And and then it's like, will anything unite us? And it would have to be an alien invasion, so we get the anthropomorphized enemy. They were like, oh my God, or you know, does China or Russia have to actually attack us with weapons before we're going to galvanize together and unite?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today, because there's been some dust-ups with the Russian military and the American military lately, like in Syria, and there was a plane dust-up and there was a armored vehicle dust-up. And I'm thinking, even if there was like an attack by Russia on America right now, that would become a politically divisive issue, because half the people are going to think, well, this is clearly political theater now. Trump and Putin are in cahoots, and this is a staged attack to make Trump get to seem like the strong leader, and they're going to do a little like a fake battle, and Trump's going to push out the Russians, and it's going to make everybody happy. Americans are going to go rah rah rah. America, see, Trump's not with Putin. now I feel bad I'm giving him this idea. This is probably going to happen now.
Well, it's like we're stuck on our narratives, right? We're stuck
Yeah.
on the storyline that we want to believe is true, and we won't accept any data that comes in that denies it, because we then have to rewrite the storyline.
Yeah, and I admit that's happening to me too. I am sort of like addicted to my Trump is evil narrative right now, because in my mind I'm like not a whistleblower. Everybody know, like people that I know, but I feel like we really need to be vigilant right now. Like I feel like democracy is totally like hanging in the balance right now, and that this election is going to be such a cluster F that it's going to be like I'm living every day like it might be my last right now, because I feel like we could just be really literally heading towards some kind of civil war or like a completely different America than we're used to. Because if Trump, from what I've seen of Trump, he is not going to accept a loss. He is a power hungry individual. And we saw that a day or two ago when he was signing that thing for the guy down in Louisiana or whatever. He went to inspect the hurricane, and suddenly he's like, give me that thing. I want to feel a little power. And he's like signing this sheets. It looks like he's on cocaine or something. He's like signing, and he's like, yeah, take that. That'll get you $10,000 on. That'll get you 10,000 on eBay. Here's another one. There you go. 10,000 for you. 10,000 for you. It's like, well, first of all, is anybody buying Donald Trump signatures for $10,000 on eBay? I heard they go more for like 99 cents. And secondly, when I see that in his face, it's just like, I don't know, like you don't want to believe it, but I feel like he's a cartoonishly power hungry human being. He's like he's a villain. And he's not going to leave. He's not going to leave, and his people are going to support him. No matter what he says, his people are going to support him. We're going to have hundreds of thousands of people out in the street with, driving big pickup trucks and waving flags and shooting at the people that don't want to accept it. That's what I'm thinking. And the other people are going to be shooting back at those. Like what we're already seeing. We're already seeing this. They're starting with pepper balls and paintballs and shooting bear spray at each other and waving flags, and there's drums. Have you seen some of these videos with like the Portland riots and when there's two counter protester groups fighting each other? It looks like Civil War footage. It looks like the beginning of a civil war.
It's craziness. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, you're gonna do the
yeah. There's fucking like
cavalry
bugles going off in the background and drums.
Charge!
And,
So
they're shooting. They're literally shooting each other and killing. Yeah. Killing. And you get the Kyle Rittenhouse in Kenosha.
Now, we're talking about very small numbers right now. And we're not actually in a cavalry charge. This could simply be explained that people are the record is we're off the record, right? We're not on track right now. COVID has created such a disturbance to normal life. People have a lot of time on their hands to overthink things, to keep spinning stories in their heads, to get really excited. Donald Trump is an unorthodox president, to say the least, but I don't see a lot of evidence. I see evidence for his power hungry mentality, and I could totally see him at least contesting the election if he lost. I don't know, and maybe I don't want to know if he would actually try to use some sort of force to stay in office if he lost the election. My instincts tell me it's unlikely, because I don't think he has enough friends in the White House and in Congress and whatnot. I think that the rest of the Republicans distrust him. They fear him, but they don't love him. And I feel like they would turn on him pretty quickly if they see weakness. And so I don't know that he would, but then again, I don't know, like a lot of them seem to be supporting him because they think he's going to ram through their agendas. So I don't know, but I still am skeptical toward this idea of a real seized, power grab if he loses the election. That being said, though, we've already seen a lot of scenarios being drawn out by people. NPR did a special on this group that basically did a war game scenario on this election, and in no scenario were there not violent protests after the election from one or both sides. So we're kind of, we are sitting on some small little powder kegs. I don't know how close we are to a civil war, but we're too close for comfort. I will say that. And I don't think there's any way through this except for us to do the work. Like the idea that, protesting is going to get some politicians to do anything different. I don't know if I see that working. I think that the real solution is conversation with the other. And so if we can get some real conservatives on here to talk with us and begin to go, okay, I see what you're saying there. Like I agree with that value. I agree with that value. If we can begin to find the bridge again between these ridiculous narratives that have spun. I don't know how to get my hands on the screen. that has spun so far away from each other. These narratives have gone so far away from each other. If we can just start to try to blend the narratives with facts, it's like, okay, I'm speculating in this direction, you're speculating in that direction. That's good. We need both speculations to anticipate the future. But ultimately, let's make sure we're actually basing this in fact and not pure story speculation.
But speaking of speculation, let's talk about what might happen. What do you think will happen if Trump wins the election? Do you think the left will accept it? Will you accept it?
If he actually wins the election and there's no clear signs of voter fraud or other manipulations, I have to accept it. It's a bitter pill. I admit it's a bitter pill because I find him to be so dividing and so just upsetting as a human being. I really don't like seeing him speak because he's always putting somebody down or bragging. It's really the idea that your president would be a hero. He's the anti-hero president. He's the guy that you just kind of don't want to talk to. He's the guy who's impressive in a dark way that you don't really want to be around that energy because he's always going to suck. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going on a tangent here.
Like narcissist energy. If you were in the room, you'd feel like you're walking in eggshells, and
it's textbook narcissism. And I don't know how else to see it at this point. It doesn't mean he's a terrible villain human being inherently, but it's upsetting to see that and the character, the importance of character in a leadership position is huge. And you see that I think our culture is having a great dip in character because Donald Trump has very poor character. So I would have to accept the results if they were strong results that he actually won the election. It would be upsetting. I would see a lot of Democrats just protesting. I could even see some, I don't know, some major things happening in governorships, but I don't know. I feel like we're also just kind of lazy. Like the actual liberal pushback is going to be a lot of hot air is my suspicion. I don't know about the other way around. I think if he loses the election, a lot of people will be relieved. A lot of people in politics will be relieved. And that's not to say, oh, they're all the corrupt politicians that are happy to get this bull out of the china shop. Like, I don't even know if I'm pretty sure that's not an accurate way to view it. Because I don't think Trump has been changing politics in any substantial way anyway. But
you don't think Trump has changed politics?
I think he's changed the tone of politics, but I don't think he's changed our trajectory as a nation at all, really. He may not have started any new wars, but he's definitely doing the same trickle down economics myth, that's going to help stimulate the economy. And I mean, you can try to claim that that's why the stock market was doing so well. I was like, well, maybe based on speculation, but that's what the whole stock market is largely speculation. You don't necessarily see the results for years down the road. So are we gambling? And this is what I'm really concerned about as our country. Like, are we gambling our children's future on this debt that we keep ramping up and on all these speculations when we're not creating a lot of new stuff? I mean, we've got technology going for us, but we're really, I mean, all the manufacturing that went out of the country, and all the excessive manufacturing is sort of as a suck on the planet in such a way that we're really leveraging ourselves into the future in a very precarious way. And Donald Trump doesn't seem to give a damn about those things. He seems to be all steam ahead. Let's keep going. Let's rip the economy apart. I mean, rip the environment apart to get more money as quickly as possible. And so I don't know if he lost a decisive loss. I don't know how the conservatives would take it, but I don't know that we're on the verge of an actual violent civil war. But I can tell you that the dysfunction in politics itself right now is such that unless we have conversations about our values, I don't see another way. Eventually, it will be a civil war, one way or another.
But maybe not right around the election. You're just thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think violent protests. Yes, I think there will be violent protests. I don't know that it's going to be to the scale of a violent, military action or anything like that.
Yeah, I suppose if Trump wins, then my guess is the House will try to immediately impeach him again. That's one thing that'll happen, and it depends on how the rest of the election goes with the senators and stuff. If there is a blue wave and the Democrats somehow end up taking 60% of the Senate, then for sure they'll impeach him a second time, because I feel like there's more impeachable material now than there was a year ago.
Sure.
Or 8 months ago. And by the way, I mean, real quick, I think COVID is the huge factor that like changed the dynamic about how everybody's feeling and how this sense of urgency and what's going on. But I actually think you could probably trace back some of this to the impeachment attempt, and when the Senate Republicans basically exonerated Trump, just failed to even listen to even really hold a hearing. They just announced that they were going to just get him off. I think that was kind of the moment when they gave him the green light, that it's like, we're not going to stop you. You have a mandate for the rest of your time in office, which was a year at the time. And we're living that now, folks. We're living in Trumpistan.
And that is the scary part, isn't it? Has Trump been acting in restraint so far, and he'll just sort of roll up his sleeves and go no holds barred if he feels like he's got a blank check?
I'm wondering if we're seeing that already. It's a complete violation of some law, that maybe is it the Hatch Act? I don't know, that they held the RNC speech in the White House, that we had that whole big speech the other day where Trump is accepting the nomination, and like they're using the People's House, the White House, for Republican political theater, which is supposed to be explicitly banned. And they had a huge fireworks display in Washington D.C. with huge fireworks that says Trump. That's all. I assume this is taxpayer money. I guess maybe it was the Trump campaign paid for some of that stuff, but certainly even using the White House as a prop is already a violation. Now, this is a small thing compared to the hundreds of thousands of people dying and the policy decisions and the other illegal stuff. That's tiny, but it's so in your face. It's just so they don't care about the law is what they're telling me. And you ask, why is there violence and anger in these cities? And I think, you mentioned trickle down economics. I think we're seeing trickle down lawlessness right now. I think that Trump and his people are off the path of, they're no longer like being held in place by the law. They're doing whatever they want, and they're saying whatever they want. So they're not being held in place by the truth or by the law. So when people see that, they go, why shouldn't I burn down this building? Why shouldn't I shoot this Trump supporter? They're all criminals. It's a criminal organization. And that's what they think about the Democrats and the media. They think that there's a criminal organization of Democrats who are behind George Soros and all the, I mean, if you want to go off into the conspiracy theory realm, they see it as a cabal of evil people. But I see the Trump family as a crime syndicate right now that is in control of America.
There are a lot of mafioso style elements in the people he associates with, and many of them have gone to jail already for crimes that they committed that were essentially, that type of stuff.
Yeah. Like most of the people in his administration have either like gone to jail for felony behavior of some kind, or have come out against him and have written a book about what a terrible guy he is, and we need to wake up. John Bolton and Mattis and Colin Powell, all these, formerly Republican military people are saying, guys, this is a bad guy. Now, maybe we should just wait for the election, and if this is all true, everyone is making the choice that's right for them. But to me, if we do elect Trump again, it just shows us to be a country of, I don't know what. Like, I will be baffled as to what is American morality at that point. And it feels like all bets will be off.
So there's this such a tricky thing here, because the conservatives are seeing liberals as crazy because they have a narrative in their minds that is Trump is this terrible villain that's going to cause incredible havoc. And even though it hasn't been necessary, it could have been worse. Let's admit it could have been worse. It's not been great. It's not been great. Now, and then you have conservatives who think it's great. Wow, Trump's the best president we've ever seen. And I find that hard to swallow still. And I do talk to conservatives, but the data that they give me is less than impressive. For that, it doesn't make the case that they're seeing, in my estimation, at all. And it's not that he's done nothing that can be perceived of by both parties as positive. It's just that they're little things that are positive. And I think that, again, this overall tone of believe whatever narrative you want to believe, that is unacceptable right now to me. And I think we can't stand it much longer, because that's a recipe for a cult. It's a cultural division that we're creating, that we've manifested out of nothing. Because I think culturally we're closer than we've ever been. We have a melting pot that's actually been melting to some degree in this country, and a lot of cultural, assimilations have happened in the last 20 or 30 years. But now we're creating a brand new rift that is fictional, that is unnecessary. And it's almost begs the question, like, do we just have that much war in us already? We just want to fight so badly because we don't have enough outlet for our aggression, that we need this war story in order to take it out on each other?
Yeah, I've asked myself that question too. Is it just inevitable? Is it human nature to just need to trump up a war every generation or so?
If we keep going in this trajectory, we're definitely going to see some more division, more polarization, and less cooperation in politics. You're just going to have extreme candidates, more Ocasio-Cortezes and super right-wingers basically in the political fray, because people are getting more and more fed up and just kind of wanting to burn the whole thing down. And I see this huge strain of anarchy, and I see it I kind of sense it in this conspiracy theorists as well as just your strong right wingers and left wingers. There's a desire to burn the whole system down. And
Mhm.
I just don't think we are conceptualizing how awful that would be. I agree. At an energetic level, I would love for the whole system to be flattened and we start over again. But that would be so bloody. In actuality, that would be horrible. And America, if it goes down, China's next in line. So immediately China takes over as the world superpower. And how does that look? What does it look like with China being the sole superpower in the world? How they culturally influence other countries and other areas of the world? That's a future I'm not sure I'm ready to see. And I'm not saying that they're horrible, but they're compared to what we think is good. I think China being the world power would be upsetting to us, to say the least.
Yeah, like we'd be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah,
probably a major clampdown on freedoms.
Right. So we can't afford to give up on America and throw it out and start over again. We just can't, which means we have to start creatively thinking about how do we build a future. And I think we start with, again, values-based conversations. You step away from the rhetoric and the specific policies of which we do not understand because they're 2,000 pages long. Most laymen who are not lawyers cannot understand that stuff. There's so many little nuances, and it only takes one little paragraph to basically make the whole law useless, or a loophole for it to be completely ineffective, or to be used for some other purpose. So for us to really interpret that stuff ourselves is really you or I should not have any strong opinions on specific policies, but we can have very strong opinions on values, because that's something that we do understand, and it's our responsibility as American citizens to push for the values that matter to us: fairness, compassion, respect for authority, loyalty to country, freedom. How do we balance our safety and our freedom? Because that's always on a spectrum, I believe. And the masks, wearing masks, is that worth the freedom we're giving up to wear masks to make it some sort of a mandate? Or can we just choose to wear masks responsibly when appropriate, so there's no need for that kind of thing? Where is the midpoint on these issues to balance them out? I feel like that's the next step. But going into the future, I know we're talking a lot about politics, and I just kind of wonder about COVID too. Like, except for the conspiracies, there's nobody just debating whether COVID's real or not, or whether it's going to last the next year or two. Pretty much, there's people being optimistic that there's going to be a cure within the next 6 months. And then there's people being realistic and saying, we're probably going to be social distancing to some degree for the next 2 years. And so what kind of damage is that going to do economically to our country? And you're going to, whole industries are going to be out of business. Not just a business or two, like a whole industry is going to go on. How do we take care of people whose industry has disappeared? That's the kind of conversation I think we need to be having right now, because those are the real problems are coming. And if we can't agree on the basic things, if we're too triggered and ready to fight with each other over things we don't understand, how are we going to start to solve problems together on the things that are obvious right in front of our faces?
And speaking of right in front of our faces, I'm trying to read some of Sarah Diamond's comments here. She disagrees with, I don't think it's laziness. I think we on the left just don't get into lockstep, so we argue amongst ourselves. Well, that is true too. And that's a double-sided one too, because I've felt at times like that I get pulled into these arguments with people that I fundamentally agree with on the big issues, but then we end up spending all of our time arguing over like some small aspect of the of the debate. And that thing about getting in lockstep, that's I don't totally want to go off on this tangent, but like fascism is like literally like the fascia is like the Roman symbol. It's like a bundle of twigs together wrapped around, and the idea is that like one twig is flimsy, but like a bundle of twigs bound together is strong. Yeah. And so I feel like in fascism, it was like what part of the strength, part of the appeal of it is just like, I don't have to think anymore. I can just join this movement, and I totally wholeheartedly like I almost have religious support of this movement. Like this is it. Like the king is basically my god. Trump is my god. Mussolini is my god. Hitler is my god.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I feel like that's the appeal, and somehow that's allowing these Republicans and Trump supporters to be in lockstep. And they're like, they're not even sweating the details anymore. They're just like, nope, we have a bigger vision. We have a vision of where America needs to go, and we're gonna get there. And
can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs.
Yeah, they're cracking quite a few eggs, and they are going to be. It's like they're so united that I can totally see them, winning this debate. Whereas the left is like way more fragmented. Biden's memory.
So every time I try to say to somebody, "Hey, it's not black and white," and I'm talking about liberals and conservatives now, they attack me for saying that it's not black and white. Because they want it to be black and white.
Oh, and yeah.
Now, when we say this, we're not necessarily advocating moral relativism. Moral relativism is this concept that there is no inherent morality. Everything is based on your particular perspective. It's all subjective, and I don't think I agree with that. What do you think, Michael?
I was reading Sarah's other comment.
Oh, okay. Well, let me finish my thought then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Subjective. So it's not subjective. There are a lot of things we agree on objectively as right and wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, there are.
We used to.
But when you get to the details of things, you may say, like, I'll just talk about abortion for a second. A real hot button one, right? Abortion. I love Louis C.K.'s rendition on abortion because it's like, nah, it's not at all like killing a baby. Not at all like, well, it's kind of like killing a baby. It's exactly like killing a baby. But I think women should have the right to kill babies. And so he just sort of spins it both ways, and you're like, yeah. And you see that it's such
kind of go along with it no matter how he spins it in that case.
Yeah. Well, I just loved that he went there because in a way it is both. And it's like, well, you're not killing an actual born baby, but in a way it is very, very much a potential baby that whose life you're ending. Yeah. So it's like, it's an ugly thing. Let's just acknowledge it's an ugly thing. We don't like when it happens. We don't really want it to happen.
Yeah.
But what are the alternatives? When you get into the nitty-gritty details of outlawing abortion, we've had abortion outlawed before, and it was awful. The kind of things that were happening in back alleys and whatnot, and doctors being, thrown in jail or losing their licenses for practicing this stuff is terrible. And so we really want to bring that back. It's not moral relativism to say, yes, I agree, killing babies, abortions are not a good thing, but the practicality of outlawing them is worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and the other side of the issue is it shouldn't be a question of practicality. It's just a question of morality, right? Like, I feel like that's the quintessential morally relativistic question in a way. The abortion question is such a thing with two sides that people are so divided on.
But what I'm saying is that there's an ideal, there's the idealistic approach to things, which I agree with. And then there's the realistic approach to things, which I also agree with. And you can legislate to your ideals, and ideally you do. But when your ideals put into legislation turn out horrible results, you have to re-question the legislation. You have to ask, how can we serve these values, these ideals better with a more nuanced form of legislation?
Sure. I mean, yeah, like prohibition would be another great example of that.
Yes.
I think everybody agrees that like excessive drinking and drunkenness and alcoholism are all problems essentially. But do you want to make it illegal to consume alcohol because you think you're helping people by somehow taking that particular temptation away from them? That was the thinking behind it, I guess. And we saw how that went, and it was not good.
It birthed the mob.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I'm thinking maybe we'll end here for tonight,
Okay.
and then next time I think we need to really bring some people that disagree with us more in here.
The fiery people on here disagree. Like, I'll disagree with you, Michael. I just disagree with you.
Well, you know
about-
what? I disagree with you about the fact that you're going to be able to disagree with me. I don't think you're going to be able to.
I refuse to disagree with your disagreement.
Andrew, you're going to do whatever I tell you to do.
Fascist! Fascist!
Well, should we thank our 6 viewers for joining us? Thank you,
Yes.
you guys. You guys are awesome. Sarah Diamond, Ryan Talbot, thanks for being our #1 commenters. We look forward to talking to you next time. And if you want to get in here, Ryan, I know you could use some in front of the courtroom experience. You can. The whole world will be your courtroom in here.
All right, Michael.
All right.
It's been good.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.